Hello, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you are in the country, and thank you for joining Project Venus Divorce Resource. I want a divorce, where do I start? I'm Nicole Young, the Marketing Coordinator for Private Vista, and your host for today. Before we get started, I just want to share a little bit of information about my firm, Private Vista. We are a financial planning and wealth management firm in the Chicagoland area, and we manage approximately $2.5 billion in assets for our clients. We have offices in both downtown Chicago as well as Oak Brook. We specialize in working with women in transition, business executives, business owners, retirees, families, and qualified plans. Next, a little bit about the webinar, just to ensure they're able to have the best experience. You'll notice that you'll be muted for the duration of the presentation. This is to ensure that everyone can hear our panelists clearly. But if you run into any technical issues, you may reach out to me, Nicole Young, by using the chat box at the bottom of your screen. Any chats that are sent will be completely confidential and they'll only be seen by me for today's session. Lastly, if you'd like to submit any questions during the presentation, please feel free to email me at info@myprivatevista.com. That's the email address you'll also see there on my square. And you can also raise your hand using that function at the bottom of your screen so that we can unmute you and you can ask your questions there. But if you'd like to remain confidential, please go ahead and utilize that emailing function. So that is it for the webinar housekeeping. I'd like to now turn things over to Nicole Ramito and Mary Beth McLean.
Hey everybody, good afternoon. It's great to be with you. My name is Mary Beth McLean, and Nicole Ramito and I co-founded the Project Venus initiative, where women in transition are connected, supported, and inspired to enrich their lives through financial planning, education, and partnership. We are passionate about providing women access to information and resources that they need to move from a place of feeling overwhelmed and anxious to a place of confidence and clarity. Since we are holding these events virtually, we have opened these sessions to both men and women who are going through divorce or thinking about getting a divorce. Before we start answering any questions, I'm going to ask the panelists to share a brief bio of themselves, and I will start with myself. And again, my name is Mary Beth McLean. I'm a lead advisor and partner at Private Vista. I have spent my entire life in the financial industry, but have been in the particular financial planning and wealth management for the majority of it. I'm also what we call a CFP, which is a Certified Financial Planning designation. So that means we've taken a lot of education and have a continuing education requirements in order to make sure that we are providing our clients not just the right information, but a really good experience. So to that, I am going to hand it over to Tanya, and she's going to tell you a little bit about herself.
Good afternoon. My name is Tanya Harvey. I am an attorney and I practice exclusively in family law. And so one of the things about being in family law is that there's several different areas, and we'll be able to talk about that today. But I have my own firm and employees and associates, paralegals, law clerks that work for me on my team. And I have been practicing for 18 years with a focus on collaboration, mediation. And of course, if we do have to litigate, that's always the last resort. But I have offices in DuPage and Cook County. So welcome.
Sarah, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Sarah Stukis, and I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. I have a practice in Hinsdale, and I have been practicing for about 20 years now and have focused solely on helping families work through issues that all of us go through. Towards the latter part of my career, I've spent a lot of time working with women in transition, and it's some of my favorite work. To walk alongside women who decide at some point that life can be different and can be better, but they just need someone to go along with them.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Ramito. I also am a lead advisor and partner at Private Vista. Like Mary Beth, I have spent my entire career in the financial services industry. We both grew up in banking and have been working with individuals on the independent wealth management and financial planning side for many years. I would say what gets me jazzed every morning is to help people kind of tune out all the noise. There's no shortage of information or things to think about or consider. And so as part of our planning process, we work with clients to say what is relevant to you and what you're trying to do for you and your loved ones. And this is really never more relevant or important than if you're considering or going through a divorce. So we're going to spend some time talking about how you can put your team together today and hopefully tune out all the noise and be able to focus in on what is most important to you and your loved ones. So with that, Nicole, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Cool. So now that you all know a little bit about our panelists, I think it is time that we start asking some questions. And if you don't mind, Tanya, I'm going to start with you. And the first question for you is going to be, and just a reminder for everyone, we're talking about the very beginning stages of divorce. So we want to answer those questions that are very important to you as you're starting out on that journey. So Tanya, the question is, do I have to go to court? Is that the only way to get a divorce?
Absolutely not. That is not the only way to go to get a divorce, is going to court. And actually, I always encourage people not to go that route because of the relationship. If we have children involved, this is a lifelong relationship, even if you are getting a divorce. So there are 3 different kinds of divorces, and I prefer that people would go the collaborative route or mediation, but there are several different ways to avoid going to court. And so especially in these times of COVID and we're doing everything virtual, the courts are really slow paced, nothing is happening. And so your idea, if you see it on TV and they say, oh, I want to go to court, yes, it's not going to happen. You're not going to get the results you want because the judges are overwhelmed right now. So a lot of people have started shifting their practices towards mediation and collaborative law. And so that just gives you another opportunity to not be adversarial. And that doesn't mean there won't be conflict. It just means that there is an alternative way to resolve a divorce case.
Anyone else want to chime in there on that question, or did you guys want to move on?
I think Tanya's our expert on that one.
Absolutely. So then just to throw it back to you, Tanya, I have one more question for you. And that is, how much is getting this divorce going to cost?
And if anyone gives you an actual number out there, there is no way they can do that. And the answer is always, it depends. It really does depend on how collaborative you are or how well you're able to work with your spouse to try to come to resolution. I always encourage my clients to speak to their spouses or to involve a mediator, and it can be attorney assisted or it can be just the parties, but every step of the way depends on how much it will cost. So unfortunately, I can't give you a ballpark because every single case is different. Every case has different facts. So unfortunately, that's not a really good answer.
Well, I think, Tanya, to add on, it's an honest answer. And I think a lot of it depends on not only the process you choose, but really all the people, or to use the legal term, the parties that are involved, right? And that includes not only the 2 spouses, but the different professionals that you have on your team. So I know all of us have seen things or a process drag on perhaps, and, you know, at least from our perspective and oftentimes from the client's perspective after it's done, is to say, gosh, I really wish, I didn't make, we didn't like fight as much about, the grandma's coffee table, right? Or how we're gonna handle the parenting agreement about the dog or things like that. So I appreciate, we all appreciate your candor around that and agree. But I think part of the responsibility is on the people going through the divorce. And then also, just as you're interviewing different professionals, in particular your attorney, make sure that their personality and their approach is going to fit in with how, how long you want to spend in the process and how you come out the other side.
Right. And I think, oh, I'm sorry, Sarah. I was just going to say, I think the team approach is very important to have the mental health professionals involved, such as Sarah, and also the financial people involved as well, the professionals, because there are specific areas that need that type of professional attention. And so you don't need to just leave it up to your attorney to wear all the different hats, because I don't have a psychology degree, although I've, mastered personalities in the 18 years of practice. But it's always good to have someone else to talk to and to walk you through this process.
Absolutely. And I was just going to add that, there are professionals that can come in and help you work through some of the issues in a less heated way, like therapy or divorce coaches or mediation or whatnot, where you can try and sort through some of those things. Once you are contemplating a divorce, it's really an admission of this is not going to work. And so certainly therapy can be instrumental in getting you to that point, or really working with your spouse to see, are we able to repair and move forward or not? But if we're talking about divorce, it's an admission usually that we're not. And then you can use that therapy room to either work through your own emotions and your own things that come up, or even to do some of the, discussions that come up with your spouse, so that when you get to the attorney's office, you're not arguing through the attorneys or arguing through the court system. It is an easier transition in a way.
Great, thank you guys for the roundtable talk on that one. I have a next question that's going to be more financial related. So if Mary Beth or Nicole want to handle this one, I'll let you guys decide who that might be. The question is going to be, what financial documents should I start to gather, and how can working with a financial advisor help me save time and money?
Mary Beth, you want to start us off on that one?
Sure. I was going to say, I think we can both probably share some insight. The very first financial documents that you should start to pull together are your tax returns and all of your credit card statements, and also any investment statements that you may have. Whether it's the 401k that you have at your own particular place of employment, or if you rolled it out from a 401k and have your own IRA, the same thing for your husband. So it's anything that you think that might have a number on it that would be pertinent to your lives together. The other thing that you also need to start to pull together is really understanding your lifestyle and what that means in terms of what the expenses are. So knowing what your mortgage is, understanding what your real estate taxes are, understanding also kind of your lifestyle and how you're supporting that lifestyle. So all of those things kind of play into kind of putting it together, what we call a financial profile of yourself, and by doing that, then we can start to help understand what the division of those assets is going to look like for both you and your spouse, and how it's going to impact your lifestyle after the divorce, if you choose to go through that process does occur.
Yeah, those are excellent points, Mary Beth. And we would just say that certainly with the tax return, 'tis the season. So a lot of documents are starting to be delivered that will be needed to prepare your return. I have found, even though I do most of my stuff electronically, I still get my tax documents mailed to me in actual paper. So keep an eye out for things that'll be coming in the mail, or they might be via email. So just, make copies of them and start to put them in your financial file, because that'll be very helpful in putting together your financial profile, as Mary outlined. And then Mary Beth, excuse me. And then also too, when you're working with your attorney. One of the things, the second part of that question is, how can working with a financial advisor save me time and money? This kind of piggybacks off the comment that Sarah made of, yes, your attorney, they're going to understand finances and certainly have experience like negotiating different settlements, both for the property and income. But a financial advisor can help lead the discussion about trying to figure out what do I own, what do I owe, how's it titled, helping you to like log into sites to either take screenshots or download statements. So because the financial advisor, that's what Mary Beth and I live, eat, and breathe every day. We're going to have certainly more experience and knowledge and education around what to look for and perhaps what questions to ask. And the way we can help save you money is, generally speaking, our fees are lower than the attorney. So you have someone who focuses in this area and then is charging at a lower rate.
That was exactly what I was going to say too, is that it's nice to have some team members helping with the financial process, because it can be overwhelming. And practically speaking, it does not make sense to be paying your attorney to go through the financials. Eventually, it will get to the attorney stage to review the financial affidavit, which is required in any divorce process, whether it's collaborative, mediation, or litigation. Every party has to fill out a financial affidavit. And by having a divorce coach, they can help you sit down and gather the documents that the financial professionals have requested. And it's okay if you're overwhelmed and you don't understand, because that's why you have these players on your team to help you get through it. Mm-hmm. So it is a scary process. It can be overwhelming, but if you have the right team involved and in place, then you can just lob it back and forth to all of your players.
I'd also like to just add, part of what we like to do is educate you too. So if you're going through this process, if you choose to follow that path, we want to make sure that you understand what we're doing for you and why, and how it can impact you going forward. So, if you're talking to an advisor or an attorney that is saying, hey, don't worry about it, we're going to take care of everything for you, we want to involve you in the process as well, because you're part of the team. You put together a team to help you, and you're the person that is kind of the quarterback, if you will, to understand what we're doing for you and why.
Okay, lovely. Thank you all. I think we're going to shift our focus a little bit, if you will, to the emotional side of things, emotional side of starting out on this divorce journey. So that's going to go to you, Sarah. And The first question there is, what's worth fighting for versus letting go?
Good question. Kind of, again, one of those, it depends on the case situations. And I think that this is where being in therapy yourself can be helpful, because initially, we start off a marriage with hopes and dreams and visions of what can be. And if you're getting to the point where you're contemplating divorce, those things probably are not ringing true any longer. And so really coming up with your own vision of what you have, would like to see in your life is really important. Nicole made a joke about, grandmother's coffee table or, tea cupboard or something like that. And I think sometimes we get hung up on the things that we attach an emotional response to. And we kind of linger there. We get stuck and keep from moving forward in the direction that we need to, especially when there are tense feelings, which come just in the dissolution of a relationship. There are a lot of emotions that are normal and expected. And so having, a good group of friends, having a therapist, having a divorce coach who is somebody who kind of moves the process along, can really help you gain some clarity in what is most important to you. Many people who are divorcing have children. So again, kind of coming back to that, what is your vision for your children? What is your vision for your relationship with your children? And how do you then make some decisions that are using your wise brain and not your emotional brain can be really, really helpful. When you're in the thick of it, trying to do those things on your own is hard, because as humans, we are very emotionally ruled, and there are a lot of things at stake. Many people will find on the other side of things, kind of similar again to what Nicole mentioned, that, oh, I wish I wouldn't have gotten so hung up in this. But sometimes we just lose sight of what's important. But if you do your work before you're going into this process, you understand kind of what you hope to get on the other side. It can really help pull you through the process, again, using that wise brain.
Right. And I think one of the big hangups for people going through the divorce process is the marital residence. And that always seems to be the hot topic. And I like to take a financial cost benefit analysis of it and just think about, what is this going to look like if you have this home by yourself? And what is the attachment to the home? What is the reason why you want this? Sometimes it makes sense, practical, to keep the marital residence, and sometimes it does not. And you either deal with it now or down the road, a couple of years after the divorce, and you say, oh, shoot, I should have just, not fought so hard over this house. It's just a thing. So I like to take a financial cost benefit analysis of that and just have some real conversations with that. And again, passing it along to Nicole and Mary Beth, it's nice for them to also project out, what is it going to look like if I have this house? How are my expenses going to be? Can I really afford this? And so, unfortunately, it's divorce process. Sarah, Nicole, myself, and Mary Beth, we kind of keep tossing our hats around about what we're wearing, but it's really about relying on your entire team to be able to make it work for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple of comments about the house. I think you're right, that it seems to be the primary asset for most couples, and there's so much emotion around the house. But we actually, for the analysis, it's not just keeping the house and paying the mortgage. It's making sure that you can pay the real estate taxes. Houses are like any other thing that need to have a little TLC over the course of several years. So we recommend a lot of times that you go and get an appraisal of your house, because if you've been in the house for 15 years and you bought it new and you're going to have to be looking at a new roof in the next 3 to 5 years, for example, hot water heaters can be disastrous if they get old and they literally burst. So we recommend, new water heaters every 5 to 7 years for planned obsolescence. So it's really more thinking, I can afford the mortgage because I know how much my mortgage is. It's so much more beyond that. And also just the care. I mean, I personally don't like to shovel snow, and I don't really want to rake leaves or get the leaves out of my gutter. So all of those things are maintenance that you have to do in order to protect the underlying value of the asset. So emotion is yes there, but we also want to make sure that we kind of take an objective approach to that too. And somewhere in the middle, we try and come up with a reasonable experience for you down the road, so that you know exactly what you're walking into if you opt to keep the house.
Mm-hmm. I would add on to that, Mary Beth, that another thing is if you keep the house and then decide to sell it down the road, now you're, in addition to all the potentially large expenses Mary Beth just shared, is you're going to be fully responsible for all the closing costs and transfer costs, and if any improvements or things need to be made to get it ready to sell. So that's something that is certainly in Cook County, and if you're in Chicago, not a small dollar amount. So you want to keep that in mind. And then on the flip side, if you do decide to keep the house, and you talked about it with your team and it fits in well with your overall settlement and forward-looking financial plan, is you want to, if you have a mortgage and you're going to stay in the house, you're going to have to refinance the mortgage to remove your spouse. The bank is not just going to say, oh, okay, you're divorced and I see you're keeping the house, we'll take him or her off of it. You're going to have to go under what's called underwriting for the bank to determine if they will let you refinance. And I know all of us on the call have seen it where if you did not have this earlier in the conversation, you want to talk with a mortgage lender or mortgage broker who understands divorce, because there's different rules or guidelines about what does and doesn't count for income. So we've all seen it where, yeah, I got to keep the house. Yeah, no, it's fine. I can afford the mortgage, but now you need to get the other person off and maintenance can't count, or there's not enough income to support it. So we wouldn't want anyone on this call to have that that surprise after their divorce.
I will just kind of paint a picture of that in this. I went through a divorce and I did decide to keep the house. It was an okay situation. I did work through it with my financial advisor, and we looked at the cost of it, but it was at the time it was very important for me to stay in that house with my kids in the school district and transition them to college and whatnot. But once that happened and we all felt a little bit settled, I actually did feel like it was a lot to take care of. I had quite a large yard, and I had a lot of yard and a lot of gardens, which initially, going through the first stages of my divorce, were very comforting to me. I spent a lot of time in that backyard finding myself and finding peace and taking comfort and solace in my gardens and tending to things. And then as we moved through the process and, my life changed and whatnot, those same things then began to feel like a burden. The sales process for me actually was okay. We were able to do a quick deed or something like that, where we kind of get each other off of the home and whatnot. But for certain situations, it can be okay, but I didn't make that decision lightly, and I didn't make it on my own. So
I wanted to just add one more thing. The thing about, if most likely your home is your primary asset that you own with your spouse and you have investments. A home is what we call a use asset. So it's great. We all need a safe place to live, but a home is not going to generate what we call current income for you. So depending on the circumstances that you have been living in, so if you opted to be the stay-at-home parent, for example, and you need to go out into the workforce again and maybe need training before you can be, financially independent, the house is not going to be some place where you can go and look for cash to pay the light bill, to put gas in the car, to put food on the table. So that's one of the reasons when we keep saying we really want to look at whether or not keeping the house is the right thing for you. We want to look at all of the assets and how that looks, because it is not unusual for Nicole, for all of us really, to see that, hey, the stay-at-home parent kept the house, and then the other parent that was in the workforce kept a lot of what we call the liquid assets, or those ones that are like stocks or bonds that do generate current income, or what we call liquid assets. So just something to think about too. Again, we're not telling you not to stay in the home. This is not a decision that's made in a vacuum, but we want to make sure that you gather all the information that you need to make the best decision that you can at the time you have to make it.
I think this is a really good time to kind of stay on this topic of lifestyle, especially with the home and whatnot, but let's just maybe dive into it a little bit deeper, starting with, I think it was Mary Beth went first last time. So maybe Nicole, do you want to handle this question of, will I be able to maintain the same lifestyle for me and my children?
Oh, sure.
Sorry, if you
Yeah.
didn't know where I was going.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I'm happy to start off the conversation. I know Mary Beth will have lots of good information to share as well, and I think too it'd be good to hear from Tanya and Sarah. So I think this we can all contribute from the lens we view this through. Um, I would say, like, I agree with the home. So one of the things when you're evaluating, do I want to stay in the home? Can I stay in the home? The next part of that process is, well, what does that mean then for all the other expenses I'm going to have? Because even if there's no mortgage on the home, Mary Beth already highlighted the expenses that every home does have. And then, of course, you need to heat the home. There's insurance on the home. We all need to eat, put clothes on our back, medical bills. So there's all the other necessities of life. And I think oftentimes what actually this full team sees is, okay, what other are the kind of what we call discretionary or variable expenses? And this could range from, summer camp for the kids to after school tutoring, to hobbies for yourself. Maybe you keep yourself in great shape by going to Pilates, right? Or center yourself through yoga. So that's where I would say a big part of the discussion where the team comes together. So of course, Mary Beth and I help you quantify what all of that costs. And if there's set terms, at some point, I think as a parent, everyone would have the goal that the child will become self-sufficient. So things like that. We know that daycare and nannies, as the kids get progressively older, those expenses certainly decrease and then go away. But then as well, so will their extracurriculars. So it's understanding, what are we spending today? And then really the conversation Mary Beth and I'll have is like, let's look forward. We're not looking backward because we're not going that way. But what do you envision for your next chapter to look like? And some of the things you may want to continue, other things you might be like, I thought my kids have been overscheduled for the last year or so. What a great opportunity to be like, let's reevaluate and check in what they want to do. But the key is you got to understand, regardless of your situation, it is a limited source of income and a limited source of assets. And so when you're going from one home to two, you don't need any math training to know expenses are going to go up, right? So that's why we all want to make sure you're evaluating, where are you today? What do you think going forward? And making sure you're accounting for all the expenses or cash outflows that come with the lifestyle. Please, I know we can all chime in or add in on that, both from financial, but also the emotional and then the legal perspectives.
Right. I think, the lawyer part of me also wants to say that you have to look to see what the maintenance obligation will be, paying it or receiving it. And maintenance is what is formally known as alimony, and as well as child support. Back in the day, they used to complain about Illinois being a percentage state for child support. And now we are an income share model. And so what that means is that you can no longer, survive on the child support amount that the state has implemented, the legislature. And it's an unfortunate thing, but it also is a reality, is that it is what it is. Here's the statutory guidelines. Here's what the maintenance and child support will be. But that's why you can also get involved in mediation and collaborative, because then you can say with your spouse, hey, these are my needs. I want to provide these things for my children. How can we do this? So that's a conversation. If you're in court, a judge, puts the gavel down and says, this is a statutory guideline. Here is what it's going to be. Here you go. So that's why it's important to kind of filter out and figure out what model you want to go through in the divorce process. Do you want to have a say in it? Or do you want the court just telling you what to do? So I think that's, another way to think about the financial end of things.
I like to look at lifestyle changes through some of the things that we don't necessarily think about initially, which is just the concept of change. You really can't dissolve a marriage and, be divorced without change. And some of the things that are real changes are your social life will most likely change. Your relationships with your former in-laws will change, may change. Your relationships with your children will change. Things generally have to kind of break down a little bit before they can be built back up. But change comes in all sorts of ways, and it's not always a bad thing. We resist it so much, but it's not always a bad thing. And on the other side, things can be much better. But some of those things do happen. And it's usually more about the other people in our lives than it is about us. People tend to have pretty strong reactions when we make a stand to change our life and take action to do so. But even the change in the relationship with your spouse, as amicable as you can be, it's strange to all of a sudden have a different relationship with the person that you have shared a home with, shared a life with, etc. And again, that's where your team can come in and be helpful to navigate some of those changes, and understand that a lot of it is developmentally appropriate when it comes to children. A lot of it is really normal when it comes to changes in relationship, but that there is another way of being on the other side of the process.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for that. I'm going to actually.
Mary Beth, you want to add anything? Or I know I like you have your saying or perspective about it being a chapter in the book.
Well, I do say that our lives are like novels, and there are many chapters in those novels, if you will, or we hope there are anyway. But that this is a chapter that you're going through, and it's a bad chapter, and we want to make it as good as we can for you. But it is a chapter, and it will end, and the rest is still to be written. So I think that if you can kind of think about it from that perspective, and again, relying very heavily on your team to, when you're anxious about whether or not the finances are going to work, or how long the process is going to take legally, or how you're feeling, people like the three of us really want to work with you to make sure that you get to the next chapter and as whole a way as you can. So just if you can kind of think about it from that perspective, it makes, I think, it changes your perspective a little bit to be more positive.
Sorry to cut you off there, Mary Beth.
Oh, that's okay.
So I'm going to actually throw this question back over to Sarah, focusing on the kids for a second. We have a question that is, how will this affect my children?
Sure. I think that's probably one of the biggest questions that we see, as it should be. I usually say to people, in my personal and my professional experience with divorce, I've never seen a really great way to tell your children that you're divorcing, but I certainly have seen some bad ways. And what we try to do is help you navigate that, so it's the least impactful, negatively impactful on your children. And it certainly depends on your children's age. Children developmentally will handle it differently because their brains are in different places. Some of the things that we can do are probably some of the things that you know already, which are to minimize the conflict that's in front of kids. It's not their business, and it never should be their business. Not using kids as messengers, not using kids as, kind of a currency with the other spouse. Trying to maintain as much consistency between two households as possible is really important, because consistency helps kids feel safe. And one of the things that divorce does to children of almost all ages is it creates a sense of unsafety. Their world as they have known is now changing. And if you think of kind of packs, in the wild, members of the pack are dependent on the leaders for survival. And especially when it's young children, they're very, very aware that they're not capable of, being out in the world yet. And they're going to look to the leaders, i.e. the parents, to create that sense of safety, predictability, and consistency for them, which can be a challenge when you're going through a divorce and everything is changing. One of the other things that I often recommend is be really good about your own self-care. Children are so attuned to us as parents, and they can pick up just the littlest bit when we're not healthy ourselves. And so, making sure that we're doing our best to take care of ourselves, whether that is, seeing your friends, taking a walk, doing some exercise, having some sort of meditative spiritual practice, sometimes just having some space for yourself to clear your thoughts is also important. I think one of the other things that I like to tell parents is try as much to put yourself in your children's perspective. You may be very relieved not to have to see your ex-husband's face every day, but that doesn't mean that they are. And we see a lot of times that fathers start to have less time with their children. Mothers usually have the bulk of the time with the parents or with the children in the parenting agreement. But that time with both parents is very important, especially just in overall development. And also looking at that children don't fully understand why parents are divorcing, nor should they be privy to the ins and outs of a marriage. But that it's okay to share some things, honestly, that are appropriate for their age. And professionals can help you with that, understanding like where your child is developmentally and kind of predicting like, okay, this might be a good thing to share. This might be something that you should, just keep to yourself, or this is what kids will need to feel safe. And this is something that you don't need to share till maybe they're older. And then the other thing that I will say is from a developmental standpoint, we really look at adolescents a little bit closer. They tend to be the population that has the hardest time with the change. That kind of 11 to 15, 11 to 16, because they're actually doing their own separation and individuation from the parents at this time, which again is developmentally appropriate. And so that's the age that we want to kind of keep a little bit closer eye on. And, is this moodiness adolescence, or is this moodiness because they're having a hard time with divorce? And certainly family therapy can be really instrumental in teasing that out and getting support.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Sarah. That's really, really great information on working with kids and families. I mean, that's really, really tough.
Thank you. I wanted to just show a couple things. So we recommend at our practice, it's the Co-Parenting Handbook. And we can certainly share these resources later. This is a great book. The other book is, this is a parent version and a kid version, and it's called Mom's House, Dad's House. These are great books, resources. Spinning them the wrong way there. But one's working for kids and one's working for adults. And again, just resources. I think Mary Beth alluded to the fact earlier that the more information, the more knowledge that you have, the more empowered you will feel. And so when everything's kind of up in the air, having some good resources and some guides like this can be helpful in just kind of like giving you support around the decisions you're making.
And also, part of my practice is being a guardian ad litem in the court system. And so when that happens, the court says, well, mom and dad cannot figure this out between themselves. So I'm going to appoint a guardian ad litem to come in, do an investigation, which involves talking to both parents and the children and anyone else, and then making recommendations to the judge. And so that's another avenue that you don't want to go down, is having some random stranger like myself making recommendations for your family. And although I am very pro therapy, I always recommend that the parents participate in communication therapy, because sometimes that's the breakdown of the marriage in the first place. The communication has failed. And so it's very, very important that, if you couldn't get therapy going during the marriage, that it's still okay to try to work on the communication after the marriage. And I think that The children will only benefit from this. And I just know from personal experience, my parents got a divorce, so I'm a product of divorce, and they shared everything with me, and it was not fabulous. And I did not need to know why they were getting a divorce. I did not need to know all of these adult situations. So I'm very passionate with my clients as well to say, you know, you focus on your side of the street and do not engage the children in anything. No matter how sad you're feeling a particular day, you reach out to your divorce coach or you reach out to your personal therapist. And so just trying to protect these children because it's not their fault.
Absolutely. So we have about 5 minutes here before I think we're going to start to wrap up. That we can give or take a minute or two there. But I just wanted to ask one last final question before we wrap things up. And I think that's a question that maybe all of you guys can chime in on. So wherever you guys want to start sounds good to me. The question is, can't I just do this on my own?
Yes, the
I'm
answer,
smirking.
yeah, well, I think we're all kind of smirking. The answer is yes, you can, but I don't recommend it, and I don't think anybody else on the team here would recommend it, because if you're already overwhelmed and anxious and you don't really know where to start, if you're kind of learning, and to me, it's like trying to fly the plane as you're learning how to fly it. So I think that you don't want to go down avenues that may ultimately cost you in terms of the decisions that you're making for your future, and or might cost you more to, like, once you've started it on your own and you've kind of got this kind of quagmire of, oh, I probably shouldn't have done this because now it impacts that. I think it would be in your best interest, if you think you can do it on your own, at least interview a couple of attorneys, a couple of financial advisors. But I also think that you have to interview a therapist, because really the attorneys stay through with you through the process. And people like Tanya are great attorneys because they want to jumpstart you for that next part of your life. And Nicole and I also work with people during and then after. And then Sarah's team will help make you better even a year or two down the road. So, I don't think it's going to be, you don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish, I guess is probably the best way to pull that all together. But I welcome everybody else's perspective on that.
Yes, as human beings, we're not meant to live in a vacuum or in isolation. And so much of our human experience is, about being seen and being heard and being validated. And a divorce really changes your identity on a lot of different levels. And those disruptions can make you question yourself and can make you feel isolated and lonely and guilty and all the other emotions that come up with that. And so having a team, where you can bounce different things off of different people is really important. You need, that financial team, you need them to be straightforward and straight shooting and, and give you the information you need. You need somebody like Tanya that says, hey, this is what it's going to look like. These are our options. This is how we can go through this. You need the therapist who creates that safe space for you to really uncover all those emotions and then begin to envision what your life can look like on the other side and help you rebuild that. And then you also need a great group of friends. And the friends might be different than you have now, but you need a great group of friends who you can call the first time your kids are with your spouse on their weekend as opposed to with you. Or, you're trying to navigate the holidays and trying to figure out, how do I do this in a different way? And so finding those people, finding that tribe can make this process so much more empowering, but so much more doable and less lonely.
Right. I don't think we should be shying away from the mental health aspect of it too. And I think that is such a important part of the divorce process. Is I can't imagine people doing this by themselves when it comes to that part of the divorce process. I actually require all of my clients to have a mental health professional. Not only is it financially responsible, but your lawyer has to be able to have some honest conversations with you And when I do that with my clients, I say, you know what, I think you need to talk to your therapist about it. And they're going to say, X, Y, Z, but you can get the confirmation from them that it's okay to have these feelings, or it's okay, how can I process this? And, mental health is, I hate to say, a hot topic now, but it's been a curse or a negative view in the past, but now because it's becoming more open that we can talk about it, it's okay to talk to other people about what's going on. And I encourage that too, because you cannot keep everything inside, because at some time you're going to explode, and you don't want to do that at your spouse during this process or at your children. So we all need help.
Yeah, and I would heavily second your comment about, we don't require that they have a mental health person, but we also strongly encourage it because, Mary Beth and I are finance people. We're human beings, so we're certainly empathetic, but we don't have the training or the tools to help people work through some of these concerns. And one thing we can say is, even though we're talking about dollars and cents, it doesn't matter how many zeros there are to the left of that decimal point, everyone's bringing emotion. I can use the term emotional baggage, but I like to say everyone brings their stuff to the table when we're talking about money. So again, if you can have someone who is trained and that is their area of focus, it really not only will help you be a better version of you, it will help you make as clear-headed decisions as you can during what, of course, is a very emotional time.
Yep.
Okay, everyone, thank you for your insight into this really complicated situation. As it is almost 1 p.m., we'll be wrapping up shortly, but before we do wrap up, we'd love it if everyone on this call, all of our panelists, if you guys would leave our guests with a kernel of wisdom. Maybe let's see if you wouldn't mind getting us started, Nicole.
Sure, absolutely. So I guess, there's so many key points. Hopefully you had pen and paper or your notes app open on your phone. But I think my kernel of wisdom for today will be, don't go it alone. As we shared, you can, but don't go it alone and especially be thoughtful about your professional team that you're putting together. So the law is when you just say, oh, I'm a lawyer, that's a pretty broad descriptor. And so when you are thinking about getting attorneys, I guess my couple tips will be, first of all, you want one who solely focuses on family law. Now is not the time to have your brother-in-law's cousin's dog walker who, did your real estate closing on the house, or maybe helped you with a business contract question. This is a very specific part of the law. It's state specific. So, your sister may have gotten divorced even in like Wisconsin or Indiana, and you're going to have different laws and courts and things like that apply to you. So definitely get people, and not only with your attorney, but your financial advisor. And then of course, a therapist or coach that again is passionate about this area, spends, if not all their time, they're committed to it. So they spend a lot of time on being educated in it and understanding what the situations and issues and opportunities are. So that would be my kernel, is take the time to put together the team, get the people who are the specialists or professionals who focus in on family law or divorce, and just make sure you get the team that's right for you. So again, your sister, your best friend may be divorced and they may be very happy with their settlement and they may have had a great attorney, but it's highly likely she may have a very different situation and certainly probably different goals or feelings about it. Okay. Is it Sarah? You want to share your kernel?
Sure. Second everything you're saying. But just from a humanistic standpoint, it is our birthright to live a good life, and life is very short. And so if you find yourself in a situation and you believe it could be better on the other side of divorce, then surround yourself with people who will support that and help you get there, and do your work. We don't leave marriages because somebody leaves their boxer shorts on the bathroom floor. We leave marriages because they no longer serve what we believe is our highest self. And so to do your individual work and figure out what that is and what you need to, feel joy and vitality in your life and accomplish what you believe is possible, is your birthright. And surround yourself with people who see that as well.
I think I'm next. So my tidbit or kernel of information is that when you are interviewing attorneys and talking to them, it's important that you have a good feeling about it, because this is a relationship. So if you're interviewing attorneys and you're talking to them for 15 minutes, I don't understand how you can't, for their free consultation, I don't understand how you can establish or even determine if that person will be right for you, because I do view my role with my clients as a relationship. They have to be able to trust me. They have to be able to confide in me. And I also share with them, look, I am very straightforward. I am not going to sugarcoat this for you. So if that's not the style you like, I'm not the attorney for you. But some people need someone outside of their comfort zone to say, Tanya, tell me if this is right, or if I'm doing the right thing, or should we keep arguing about this? Does it make sense? So you have to have a relationship with your attorney, because it could be long-term. It could, your children, the law is part of your life until the children are off in college, and you may need help. And my goal is to never talk to you again after the divorce judgment. So that way, everything has been peaceful, it's been wonderful, and you have the tools in place, the people in place to move you forward. But if you need me in the future, I'm here for you, talking about college, talking about, someone didn't pay child support, or, but it doesn't always have to be running to court. We can use the team approach. That's my big spiel on that. But I love having a relationship with my clients, and I think it's very important.
By process of elimination, I am next. So I would say it's almost like a two-part. The first is you're unique. And as Sarah's already pointed out, you deserve to live your best life. But remember that you are unique. And so as you decide to go through this process, you're probably going to share that with some close friends, or maybe you have had a close friend or other family members that have gone through a divorce. And it's really important to remember that you are unique, and so will your divorce be. Yes, there are statutes that apply, but I can't tell you if we had a nickel for almost every time we've had somebody come in and say, well, my neighbor got this, and, my husband works at the same company, so why can't I get that? Your circumstances are going to be very individual, and you just have to remember that. And it goes back to what Tanya said, is she's your advocate on the legal front. So work with them. And so there's that Greek chorus, we call it, where they say, well, they say that I'm going to be able to get X, and I've heard so-and-so. You got to almost put that aside and just say, what am I going to get? And how is the best way for me to go through this process? And then as you're going through the process, be careful who you share your information with, because, and do not post that there's something that your spouse did or your kids did, and your kids did it because your spouse and you are fighting because of the divorce. Try and keep that between you and your therapist or your financial advisor and your attorney. As Nicole's already pointed out, we're not psychologists, but that's better. Pick up the phone and talk to one of us before you post something, because that post is going to be out there basically forever. And so even if your kids don't know about it now, they might find out about it later. So just try and, it's not easy. I'm not suggesting that this is an easy road to hoe, but I think that if you can kind of keep in the back of your mind, this could come back to haunt me. So don't listen to the Greek chorus and don't be part of the Greek chorus, because I think that in the long run, you'll be a much better person for having taken that approach.
I always say too, when you're posting something online, the good catch-all is, would I want a judge to read that? So that's
Or your
always-
mom, or your mom.
Yeah, or your mom. Yeah.
True. All right, well, that is excellent insight to share as we wrap up our webinar today. For those of you who joined us, thank you for all your excellent questions. And we hope that the knowledge you gained helps ease your mind and that you feel better equipped to move forward on whatever path is best for you. If you would like to schedule a complimentary consultation with any of us, up on the screen, you can see our contact information. So please feel free to reach out, and we're happy to have a initial consultation that is free of charge. Otherwise, you will be, we hold these events periodically, so you will be alerted or invited to our future events. And other than that, we just want to leave you with the fact that you're not in this alone. If you do decide to proceed with a divorce, you can do it and you will get through it. So thank you again for joining us, and we hope you stay inside, stay warm, and enjoy the rest of your day.